Coming up on Tech News Today, carrier IQ is so misunderstood. We'll explain. It's actually true. Also, Verizon strikes T-Mobile a death blow, and a sane alternative to SOPA. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Friday, December 2nd, 2011. Tech News Today is brought to you by Netflix. Watch thousands of TV episodes and movies on your PC, Mac, iPad, or iPhone instantly. All streamed directly to you, saving you time, money, and hassle. For your free 30-day trial, go to netflix.com/twit. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Darren Kitchen.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
And Jason Howell is off sick. Poor guy. I hope he feels better soon. That's why Iyaz is back there behind the board. Why are you stealing my products?
Oh, sorry.
You're trying not to call attention to them.
Yes.
Oh, I see.
was trying to turn that down. Anyway, moving on.
Real professional stuff, guys.
Welcome to Tech News
Must be
Today.
Liquid Friday.
It's a Friday. Sarah hasn't slept in weeks. Jason's out sick. Darren and I have been drinking scotch. It's going to be that kind of day. Let's start with the carrier IQ saga continues. On Thursday, plaintiffs sued the company in St. Louis and Chicago. Actually, they sued not only Carrier IQ, but HTC and Samsung for allegedly violating a federal wiretapping statute. Federal Wiretap Acts forbid intercepting oral wire or electronic communications and provides penalties of $100 per day for every violation. Germany's Bavarian State Authority for Data Protection sent a letter to Apple asking for more information on the issue. However, we finally got marketing director or VP of marketing Andrew Coward to talk. He's been out talking to All Things D. They put out a statement saying that what the Eckhart video demonstrates, the Eckhart video being the one we saw on Wednesday, which showed keystrokes being captured and all that. What the Eckhart video demonstrates is that there's a great deal of information available on a handset. What it doesn't show is that all information is processed, stored, or forwarded out of the device. They got Rebecca Bass of Infidel Inc. She's a longtime security researcher, very respected, former NSA, Los Alamos researcher, to say that she has examined the carrier IQ implementation. She hasn't been paid by them. It is her opinion that allegations of keystroke collection or other surveillance of mobile device users' context are erroneous. Also, an independent researcher that was not asked by Carrier IQ to do anything, Dan Rosenberg, posted up on Pastepin, Carrier IQ does a lot of bad things. It's a potential risk to user privacy, and users should be given the ability to opt out of it. But people need to recognize there's a big difference between recording events like keystrokes and HTTPS URLs to a debugging buffer, which is what Eckhart showed in his video. And he says, and he admits, that's pretty bad itself, and actually collecting, storing, and transmitting the data to carriers, which does not happen, according to Rosenberg. So the upshot of all of this is Carrier IQ has been forced to come out into the public and prove to people, look, we aren't capturing, collecting, or keylogging. What you saw on Eckhart's video was the software reading that keys have been pressed. Your email does that. Every app does that. They read what's happening in events. We don't actually record that stuff, forward it, or store it. That's just going into the debug buffer. And that's fair as far as it goes, but it begs the question, why was Carrier IQ there without your knowledge? Why didn't you get to opt into it collecting any information? What information is stored, forwarded, and recorded? And why couldn't you turn it off? Why couldn't you kill the process?
And mind you, it's up to the carriers to decide actually what data they do collect and how they process that data. And AT&T and Sprint have just gone on to say that whatever they do with it is according to their privacy policy. So, you know, there could be some variation between the carriers on what they actually do with that data. And unfortunately, there isn't really an easy way to find out what that is, as it transmits its data back to the carrier under an encrypted means.
So you're satisfied. I mean, you know how these rootkits work. You're satisfied that what Rosenberg and
I'm satisfied with Rosenberg
and
decompiling it and looking at the assembly code and saying, hey, you know, I totally get When I first saw the video, my impression was, oh, great, because it's a phone on top of a computer screen with what looks like it could be a packet capture or basically eavesdropping on the communication coming out of the device. And that's why what I expected, what I ended up seeing was a bunch of Android debug code taking a look at the actual messages internally. And that does not necessarily indicate that what he was seeing was saved to a log file or transmitted. I'd be more interested in seeing the transmissions, but again, like I said, that's encrypted, so fat chance of that happening.
Any app that runs on your phone conceivably is going to have to tell what keys you're pressing, right? Because that's how it interacts with you.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's all we were seeing.
And I've actually seen, I did a fair bit of investigation of my own coming back from DEF CON, you know, when weird stuff was happening with my own device, putting it into airplane mode and putting it in a test network lab just to see what over Wi-Fi it was transmitting. And at first, you know, I was like trying to see ghosts in the network where they don't exist because, you know, I was like, you know, caught up in the speculation of a CDMA hack from that con, which still hasn't been verified one way or another. But what I noticed was a lot of this like marketing tracking data and things that look suspicious. But then when I go back to the IP address, it was, like I said, like a marketing tracking company where if you install some game or something, it's resident in the background, collecting anonymous usage statistics and things of that nature.
And that's not to just totally excuse carrier IQ.
No.
I mean, they're running a process that you don't know is running.
Yeah, you're right.
When I say like any program can read your keystrokes, that's also with the understanding that you've launched that program and you know its capabilities, right?
That's, you know, that's the double-edged sword of, you know, the open nature of the platform. Like somebody could publish a keyboard, which, you know, because on the Android OS you can install third-party keyboards. Now there's nothing to prevent those keyboards from recording all the keystrokes and sending them back to somewhere malicious.
And an app that you don't know is there could be updated without your knowledge to do things that it isn't doing right now.
Absolutely. So I do believe that carrier IQ needs, like, there needs to be more transparency. I know that it's kind of gets bundled into the carrier AT&T or Sprint's, you know,
Sprint, AT&T, and T-Mobile all use it. Verizon's the only one who doesn't use it.
There just needs to be a way, even if it's buried in your advanced settings on whatever system you're using, on whatever smartphone you're using, to turn something like this off.
And supposedly with iOS 5, that's how it is. Or at least
well, they just have it disabled, right? Yes. You can't actually enable it in iOS 5.
Right, you turn on debug mode with iOS, and then it starts a similar process, or I think it's even actually based on this technology. But Apple's gone ahead and said that with a future update, they're not going to be continuing to use this.
Which is what we were talking about yesterday. Is like, well, why did they ever then?
Yeah.
They don't think it's so great. What was that whole experiment about?
I think to a certain degree it's necessary for the operators to...
Well, and Verizon collects this data. They just collect it with your cognizance, with you opting in and saying, yeah, I would like that stuff to be safe.
I think that's the only problem that really lies here is the transparency and the ability to opt in and opt out and know what you're actually doing. And I think, if anything, this has just kind of raised awareness to people that hadn't thought about, like, oh, wait, that's possible? You know, to record the keystrokes and text messages and to capture those hooks, to hook into, like, the SMS system and get the messages before you even see them, and then filter them out, like, I don't want to show you these messages because they're my command and control botnet messages. Yeah. You know, it's absolutely possible.
Well, and any app can do all of the things that Carrier IQ did, but that doesn't excuse it for doing them. Any game that I download from the marketplace shouldn't be logging my HTTPS sessions and looking at my text messages as events and the debug.
Thing, that was absolutely egregious. The fact that it would capture the URL, which a lot of times with the HTTPS, there's stuff in there that you just
if it's a browser, it should. But what's happening is this Carrier IQ is acting like every program. It sounded like, as far as like data capture, and granted, not storing it, not logging it. Not forwarding it, at least, you know, that's what they say, and Rosenberg seems to agree with that.
Right, and there's actually ways to, you know, get this off your phone if you'd like, but unfortunately it involves rooting, which may be, you know, in violation of your carrier's terms of service, so you may void your warranty or whatever it may be. You know, I know that, like, with a rooted phone, I feel like, you know, again, it's the old adage, you don't actually own the device until it's rooted. On my rooted devices, I have excellent egress filters and firewalls where I can actually see, like, oh, this program's trying to send some packets to this port on this server. And you can be like, okay, who's that? No, never mind, I don't want that. But you don't have that ability if you're not.
And some people in the chat room are like, why would you ever even want them to track your phone? We've had a few network engineers write in and say, actually, this kind of data that Carrier IQ says they are sending, the anonymized overall usage data, the stuff that doesn't have your personal information in it, is essential in managing network performance, and it is incredibly helpful. And when you're out there complaining, I don't have enough bars and my calls getting dropped, the solution to that is getting this kind of data so they can see where the problems are and fixing them. but there's a right way and a wrong way. And all the network engineers that wrote in also said the way Carrier IQ did it was the wrong way to do it.
Right, but the network engineers that wrote in explained that basically on the other side, if you're not in the device, all you can see is from the tower's end, where you're like, oh, is the device on the network? Is it transmitting? Is it receiving? You don't see things like what's going on in the phone, what processes are killing the battery, and things of that nature.
Right. Speaking of Verizon, Verizon Wireless has proposed buying 122 wireless spectrum licenses in the AWS band. That's the Advanced Wireless Services band. From Spectrum Co. Spectrum Co. is a fictitious entity made up of Comcast, Time Warner Cable, and Bright House. They joined together with actually a bunch of other companies, but they're the only ones left, to buy Spectrum in 2006. They've been sitting on it. They really haven't been using it, so they're going to sell it to Verizon. Comcast will get $2.3 billion out of it. Time Warner Cable gets $1.1 billion. Bright House gets $189 million. That's concomitant with their investments in the company. They also get the right to sell Verizon's service or become MVNOs on Verizon's network and sell their own branded service that uses Verizon. Likewise, Verizon will be able to sell their cable service. So what we're looking at here is cable companies are getting out of operating their own wireless services. They're going to sell Verizon at least for 4 years. Even then, they'll just be using the Verizon network if they decided to do an MVNO. And Verizon is probably not going to be doing Fios TV outside of the markets they're already in because they're agreeing to sell Comcast, Time Warner Cable, and Bright House service in Verizon stores.
To me, it just seems like these companies are kind of sticking to what they know and what they do well, and just kind of agreeing not to step on each other's toes and, you know, cross-promo and all that fun stuff.
I wonder how that's going to affect something like we talked about Verizon Fios customers being able to watch certain live television channels through their Xbox, how a deal with Comcast might either make that better, more robust, or kill it.
It probably won't affect it. In other words, that'll still happen on Fios, but Verizon's not going to expand Fios. So if you don't have Fios in your neighborhood, give up. It ain't coming. You're not going to get it. This is sort of the death knell for that. It's also the death knell for Clearwire. Comcast and Time Warner Cable will stop reselling Clearwire 4G. So that explains why Sprint anteed up to bail out Clearwire yesterday because they knew this was coming, is my guess. Cricket Wireless and Verizon have entered an application to the FCC to do a spectrum swap, which would give Verizon some of Cricket Wireless's AWS spectrum in exchange for some 700 megahertz spectrum that Verizon has. That probably helps them not appear anti-competitive in their application to buy the Spectrum Co. spectrum, but it also gives them more AWS spectrum. Now, one thing that's interesting about that, AT&T is going to be doing LTE in the AWS spectrum. Alphabet soup there, but the AT&T's new fast stuff going to be in the same part of the sky as Verizon, which the upshot of that is means you could have one device that would work on both AT&T and Verizon.
That chance, Tom.
Yeah, it could happen.
Yeah, no, I don't believe so. They'll find some way to gimp it.
They'll find some way to get you out of it. The other thing that this is bad for is T-Mobile. T-Mobile, if they don't merge with AT&T, their best bet was the cable companies.
Well, I'm sure there's still some cable company out there somewhere.
Cablevision?
Maybe.
They actually pulled out of Spectrum Co. A while ago, so they got nothing.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, T-Mobile's best bet was to go get the Spectrum. It's now gone. Verizon didn't need it.
Verizon, well T-Mobile, rather, is just kind of shut out of everything. It's the worst-case scenario.
I don't think Verizon didn't need it. I mean, you know, everyone always needs more spectrum.
Everybody always needs to get granted. But Verizon said, we have enough spectrum to last till 2015.
Well, now they got enough to last till 2016.
AT&T says, we don't have enough spectrum right now. T-Mobile's like, we don't have enough spectrum in the past.
Well, that's a great way to kill your competitors.
Yeah,
Verizon's the network that's just been rolling out LTE left and right.
Yeah, they got no problems. They got no issues. And now they're just rolling
They're
it.
like, we'd like more spectrum. We don't really need it.
Or Clearwire.
But why not just get some spectrum in reserves? It's kind of like how Apple works.
It does make you wonder if there should be interoperability conditions on all spectrum that is auctioned off. Remember that Google forced interoperability on the 700 megahertz spectrum. That was sold, and that may be why Verizon's moving to some AWS because it doesn't have that restriction. But you could conceivably effectively corner the market on spectrum.
Yikes!
And then just drive your competitors out of business. And so, ironically, the FCC and the DOJ stepping in and stopping T-Mobile from merging with AT&T may kill T-Mobile because they can't now. Now they have one less option.
This still has to be approved as well. And do you think the FCC realizes the ramifications of giving that, I mean, the frequencies should just be shared.
My understanding of how this works, I'll admit, is limited. But my understanding of it is that they can only deny the application if they can show that there would be an anti-competitive situation in a given market. So in other words, if in one market Verizon would have all the spectrum, Verizon probably very carefully understands that this is not going to give them domination. That's probably why they did the swap with Cricket Wireless, is because they're looking at, well, Chicago may have been a problem, so let's swap there. That way we don't have a dominant problem
so
there.
That they can
and so the FCC may be hogtied. They may not be able to object on anti-competitive grounds because Verizon may not have a dominant position in any one market, which if they don't, maybe that's okay.
Well, it doesn't take a magic 8-ball to figure out that just a duality of Verizon and AT&T is not going to be a happy future.
Yeah. I agree. Happy future's coming for Mark Pincus, though. Zynga is ready for their IPO. They filed an updated S1 with the SEC today.
Roadshow!
Here's your prices. Somewhere between $8.50 and $10 per share. And so they're offering 100 million shares. That means they're hoping to raise over $1 billion. Also, their NASDAQ code is out, ZNGA.
That's a good one.
Be looking for that. And yes, the roadshow, as Sarah just mentioned, CEO Mark Pincus began the pitch. He's got a 30-minute video out there.
Hi, I'm Mark Pincus, founder and CEO.
So he's got a little slideshow going on with it. You can see it at Retail Roadshow. You'll also get lots of good SEC updates. You know, he doesn't have his T-shirt and jeans on. He's got to put a sport coat on to pitch it.
They're on branding with this whole thing. Just to look.
Huh?
We don't know he's wearing pants.
He may not. He may be pantsless. It's quite possible.
I hope he is. Gaming company and all.
Anyway, so the road show will continue now as Mark Pincus hits the road. Company's going to be valued at $7 billion. Revenues continue to grow, although the number of active users has been declining. And at the same time, Electronic Arts has acquired a social game company, ClickNation, which develops RPGs for Facebook. So Electronic Arts trying to position themselves directly against Zynga, so they got more competition in the marketplace. But $7 billion is lower than people thought Zynga would be valued at. And it's about the same as Electronic Arts, roughly.
Maybe they'll make it up in in-game purchases on IPOville.
I think also a lot is riding on how this Zynga IPO plays out, because Groupon and what's the other, Angie's List? Am I getting that right?
Yeah.
The other,
right.
The recent IPO, both of those are trading. I mean, last I saw, slightly below their original IPO price after spiking initially. But it's nothing that looks all that promising to people. And we're talking about recessions, and is this a good time for companies to go public at all? And Zynga has just gotten so much buzz, and obviously they've made so much money, and they seem to have a pretty solid plan, but they rely so much on Facebook that it's a kind of precarious situation. So I think that it behooves them to be a little bit more conservative out of the gate.
Yeah. Let's take a quick break and thank our sponsor, Netflix. Netflix.com/twit is the way to get free stuff. Free television shows, free movies, and you're not breaking the law. You can stream as much as you want all day long for 30 days without paying a darn thing. Try it out. Netflix.com/twit. All kinds of great TV shows and movies in there. You can stream them on your iPad, on your iPhone, on your Android device, on your Xbox, on your television. I mean, pretty much if you can think of a screen, you could probably stream Netflix to it these days, one way or another. Check them out for free, netflix.com/twit. If you already have Netflix, let folks know about it, netflix.com/twit. We thank them for their support. On to an alternative to SOPA. SOPA on the ropes, says the headline from Ars Technica. This is an alternative discussion draft to the Stop Online Piracy Act put forth today by Senators Ron Wyden and friends. In fact, there were 10 senators and representatives, Zoe Lofgren, Daniel Issa, Ron Wyden, a bunch of others in here. And they're accusing, they're looking at changing SOPA so that accusations of online piracy from sites overseas would be handled by the ITC, the International Trade Commission. We know them as people who adjudicate patent disputes, but their job is actually handling imports and exports. Stuff coming in from overseas.
Sure, but I mean, those are all physical goods.
Exactly.
How does this change in the digital realm?
This says, you know what? ITC can do that for physical goods. Let's have them do it for digital goods. And here's the plan, which, by the way, they are putting forth for people to comment on before they propose it as legislation, which SOPA didn't do. Rights holders can petition the ITC for a cease and desist order when a site in question is foreign and primarily and willfully violating U.S. law. Sites would then be notified, and guess what? They'd have a right to be heard by the ITC before decisions are made in most cases. And even then, if the decision goes against them, they can appeal it in a court of law. So there's something akin to due process here.
Well, it's kind of like the DMCA, where you can just file it back out.
No. This is better than the DMCA. Nothing happens until you've been to the ITC and had a hearing.
Oh,
DMCA, it's pull it down until someone...
Shoot
yeah.
first, ask questions
This
later.
is no shooting till the ITC has heard the case.
Well, unless, of course, there's an urgent request, and then it gets, preliminary
Is that
and
the
temporary
whole
letters.
most cases thing? That
That's
if
the most
something
cases
is
thing, yeah.
Life or death enough, they still go down?
And there are penalties. The ITC has this in place already for physical goods. There are penalties for abusing that system. If you do willful kind of...
Well, what's the actual enforcement? Because it's not DNS-based like the SOPA was.
Right, so it doesn't mess with the DNS. It doesn't try to block websites. It doesn't try to hurt the web. The remedy is internet advertising firms and financial providers would have to stop offering credit card payments and ads to any site in question if found in violation.
Huh. You know, this
Cut them off with the funds.
It's kind of interesting because, you know, it's the eternal return again. One of my favorite things. You may remember this little site called All of MP3 back in 2000.
I've heard of it.
Okay, well, in 2006, the U.S. trade negotiators actually warned Russia that if they continued to let all of MP3 operate, that they wouldn't let Russia into the WTO, the World Trade Organization. And then, you know, basically what it all came down to in their demise was in 2007, or actually before 2007, when Visa cut them off. And the only way to, like, you know, buy from them was to, you know, purchase vouchers and stuff on eBay. Even like in 2007, a UK police officer arrested a 25-year-old man on fraud charges for selling said vouchers.
Now, Visa did that on their own.
Right. Visa did that on their own. In
this would be after a judicial entity reviews a case and says, oh, okay, you know what, that's against the law.
Well, this was the demise of, I mean, even though in 2007 Moscow court ruled that Visa's decision to cut off payments to all of MP3 was illegal, it effectively shut them down. And guess what? Still around. Not all of MP3, but a billion others, all the same.
Exactly. I mean, what this does is provides... I mean, there does need to be a way for someone to complain like, hey, my stuff's getting stolen, right? We really need wholesale change in the copyright law, but... Setting that aside for the moment, if something's against the law, it stands to reason you should have a way to complain about it, you know, and this provides a reasonable way to do that without just being able to tar and feather anyone you want without any kind of judicial review.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, the whole, like, just take them down thing, you know, I don't think that's the right way to go either, but I don't believe that this whole, like, follow the money thing will work either, because when you think about, you know, our pirates on the internet, you know, the monetary thing is not the #1 concern.
Well,
I mean, all of these torrent sites would
okay,
exist whether or not they had, you know, a banner banners on their website or whatever.
Well, and there's plenty of evidence that that copyright infringement actually increases your purchasing. There's tons of evidence out there right now that says the pirates are the ones who spend more money on you. So the problem is actually in physical counterfeit goods. And remember that Stop Online Piracy dealt as much with clothing and actual physical DVDs as it did with torrents. And so what they're trying to do is say, okay, if there's a website involved where people are ordering, like, you know, fake Louis Vuitton bags, it's going to apply to them as well as torrents. This does less to stop torrent trackers than it does to actually stop people who are profiting. And if you want to believe these take a bite out of crime videos that are saying when you pirate something, you're funding the criminals. Well, they've backed off of terrorism. Now they just say criminals. But the only time you would be funding criminals is if you're paying them. So this makes sense. Like, well, if we want to, all we want to do is stop the criminals from getting money. Once they've been proven to be criminals, we stop their funding. If it doesn't stop the freebies that actually aren't hurting business and might actually be helping business.
Yeah, you think those will just kind of like go under the radar, or if there's no monetary reason to? I mean, I get that, you know, the whole follow the money thing, and that it does kind of make sense for the ITC to have this, but I still am a firm believer that, you know, there shouldn't be this at all. And
there should be no punishment for someone breaking the law?
No, that's not what I'm...
Well, see, that's the problem, right?
Yeah, I know.
Because this is actually fairly reasonable.
The best thing about this, though, is that they're actually like there's a request for comment before this actually gets proposed, and I think that's the nicest thing about this story I see.
All right, not quite finally. RIM restated earnings expectations today. It's all bad news. Worldwide shutdown of BlackBerry service during October cost them $50 million. Sluggish sales of phones and tablets mean that they're going to be slightly lower than their expected $5.3 billion to $5.6 billion in the third quarter. Also expected not to meet their earnings targets for the year. They did say they shipped 150,000 playbooks during the quarter. It's not a lot.
Shipped a lot of phones to factories,
They
too.
claim they sold more tablets than they shipped, but they are going to post a $485 million charge related to playbook price reductions.
They sold more tablets than they shipped?
Yeah, well, because shipped isn't sold. We say that all the time.
Yeah, but how do you sell stuff that you haven't shipped?
Because you already had a bunch sitting around out there.
You sold them to a distributor. Or,
you shipped 150,000. There were 500,000 sitting around out there on the retail shelves.
They've got a UPS.
You dropped the price to $199.
If that's what you're bragging about,
yeah,
then things aren't looking good.
They shipped them from one warehouse to another.
Yeah.
That's why those two guys got drunk on the
We shipped 500 once. We sold 500 individually. Therefore, more sold than shipped.
And they also had to cut the price to $200 to do it, which meant they took a $485 million charge related to the price reductions.
Ouch.
I'm sorry, RIM.
Yeah.
It's not funny anymore.
It's not, especially when they had two employees get drunk and cause an Air Canada flight to have to turn around on its way to Beijing.
And did they get drunk because their company isn't doing well?
Probably
no one really
because
knows.
they were using a beta version of the BBX 2.0 software. You know?
The email app doesn't work, and I won't leave my seat. I won't sit down. Finally, sources close to Microsoft have informed the Next Web that the public Windows 8 beta will be released in late February of 2012, not at CES. When Rumors checked with their sources when they heard this, they said their sources were telling them late January, but still not at CES. When Rumors says that Microsoft will demonstrate a near final beta of Windows 8 alongside a Metro version of its Office products at the Consumer Electronics Show in January. We'll be there covering it. January 9th is when it starts, so keep an eye out for that. Windows 8 beta is supposed to have Windows Media Center back in it. It's not in the developer preview right now, but it should be coming back. Some Windows games, DVD Creator, .NET 3.5, all supposed to be made available in the Windows 8 beta. Microsoft will share more information about its Windows 8 App Store coming up this Tuesday.
That's exciting stuff.
That's the one where you can try stuff out without having to buy it.
But it just kind of like for the actual apps,
it's called
just kind
shareware.
Oh yeah, I know, right? But it just takes you to the website of the software seller.
For
it's not
desktop
like,
stuff.
For desktop
For Metro stuff, it automatically installs it.
Which is really cool, but it just seems like it's just furthering the desperation between the Windows desktop and the Metro stuff.
And a lot of people
I kind of feel like it's a DOS shell on top of DOS or typing win.com. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah. A lot of people pointing out, too, that yesterday on Windows Weekly, Paul Thurrott let drop that Microsoft, as far as he understands, is leaning towards cutting that desktop app capability from ARM tablets. Now, he didn't say anything about netbooks or desktops, but ARM-based tablets might not have the ability to use the desktop, which is the normal-looking Windows, and instead you would only have the Metro interface.
That is so lame. I mean, Windows since NT was originally supposed to support ARM architecture. I mean, we get it from the Windows N10 or the DEC N10 architecture, and that's why it doesn't stand for never tested, it turns out. But I was like really excited about seeing Microsoft actually come true on their promise of bringing that truly.
But do you really want the
full
desktop on a tablet?
See, that's the
Absolutely.
thing. Is
Just
like,
cross-compile.
It seems like people would only want this just because it would differentiate a Windows tablet so much from the other tablets. But do you really want that?
An ARM-based tablet is going to be so much more power efficient than an X86-based one. It's probably also not going to cook your lap. But
the Metro interface may be fine for what you need to do on a tablet. Yeah? No?
Also, tablets aren't really cooking my lap much.
Well, wait until you get an X86-based one. I don't know.
Okay.
Now you're cooking with X86 on your lap.
There you go. New marketing slogan.
I've been waiting a while.
All right. Shall we move on then and take a look at what's on fire in the newsfeed? Wired has uncovered the cause of a water pump failure in Illinois, originally blamed on hacking. The pump was indeed accessed by a person in Russia named Jim Mimlitz. When we say they uncovered it, they're reporting on it. However, Mimlitz is a person who helped set up the utilities control system in the first place. Said he was vacationing in Russia when he received a call to examine some charts remotely. He used his credentials and logged in. Of course, that meant he had a Russian IP address, though. After the pump burned out, the logs were checked. People saw that IP address and thought it was a malicious login from Russia. Nobody checked with Mimlitz, so that's what that was all about. It doesn't mean our infrastructure is any more secure, but in this case, wasn't a hacker.
Well, I have some news for everybody.
Yes?
The Swiss are thieves.
What?
A government study examined how to address the fact that approximately a third of Swiss people within the country download content illegally. Now, the study concluded that no charges would be made because copyright holders aren't necessarily losing any money.
So they're not going to change the law?
No, they're like, well, what's the issue? A lot of people are downloading stuff, but who's really, how is this docking anybody? More restrictive anti-piracy schemes like Hadopi were examined, but found the implementation was far too expensive, which is also pretty reasonable because here's a quote from a translated version of the study. Every time a new media technology has been made available, it has always been abused. This is the price we pay for progress.
This is what I was talking about earlier. They basically said, you know what? You're making more money off the people who pirate than you're off the non-pirates. What are you complaining about?
It is the most reasonable thing I've heard in a long time.
Go Swiss.
Go Swiss.
Your argument's full of holes.
Yeah.
So is cheese.
Everything's fine.
Cheese. How am I supposed to go from cheese to patent wars? Well, I guess I'm just going to do it anyway. On to patent wars, even though Samsung has the injunctions stopping sales of the Galaxy 10, 10.1 in Australia overturned, the court has extended the ban on the sales for 1 more week, so that's up to December 10th. So Apple has time to appeal. Meanwhile, some court filings from the companies are public, and they include helpful information from Apple on how Samsung could design a non-infringing product. See, Apple suggests maybe losing the rounded corners, maybe changing the bezel to a non-rectangular shape. Another suggestion was to, go with a cluttered appearance for the tablet.
Something like that.
Oh, yes.
See,
Wow, I thought this 5.3 guy was good.
I think
really
they
onto
said, here, if you just
something.
make it look like a Newton,
Yeah.
everything will be fine.
Look at that 5.3. That is.
Actually, I think
I'm
they're
sorry.
the same screen
about the
size.
same
That
It
is-
just has a bigger
They
bezel.
really are. They really are.
In between in all the weirdest ways.
And you know what? This one has a stylus as well. So
See? They're the same dang
There we
phone.
go.
Sue them again.
Apple, you copied the Newton.
Western Digital announced that its production of hard drives are partly restored ahead of schedule. That's good news. WD's factory suffered damage due to floods in Thailand. The early resumed production led Barclays Capital to say Western Digital will be able to recover lost share from Seagate much faster than expected, which in turn helped out Western Digital's stock price.
There's a new lead developer from Minecraft, and it's Jens Bergensten. The announcement was made by Marcus Persson, better known as Notch, on his blog. So what will Notch be doing now, you might wonder? He says he's going to take a rest. That's something that I'd like to do soon. Helping out with Minecraft and start some new project. Well, he's had a lot of success. He probably knows what he's doing.
When you rest at night, watch out, Notch. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
Acer just announced its honeycomb-based Iconica Tab A200. It's a 10.1-inch tablet powered by a Tegra 2 dual-core 1 GHz processor, and shipments to some countries have already begun in November. Acer says that ice cream sandwich versions of the A200 will ship in January 2012, and if you get your hands on an A200 early, you'll be able to get a free upgrade to ice cream sandwich around January as well. Acer didn't announce the actual release dates or pricing.
I'm going to pour a little out now.
Oh,
for Napster.
Oh.
They've officially been subsumed into Rhapsody. Rhapsody had bought all kinds of Napster intellectual property from Best Buy in October, but starting yesterday, going to Napster.com leads you to a page that offers a trial version of Rhapsody. So long, Napster.
It was always better when they had the chat rooms and you could say ASL.
Yeah.
Also, I'm looking for Nirvana.
A composer is fighting to get royalties for his music. Brein, a Dutch copyright lobbyist group, BREIN, commissioned an anti-piracy theme to be composed by, oh boy, Melchior Rietveld. The composer says the group paid for a single use of the music. That didn't happen, though. It turns out the music was used by the copyright lobbyist group in anti-piracy ads that ran on DVDs. And it actually gets weirder. Rietveld appealed to a royalty collection agency, but then a board member of that agency said that they'd help as long as the board member received a third of the cut of the money collected. The composer is looking for more than 1 million euros for pain and suffering.
Wrong license.
Yeah, you want to talk about licenses and a third of the money collected? Apple's kicked off Match.com's iOS app.
kicked it out.
Yep, they're out because their app has in the store because it violates their in-app purchasing or subscription policy. See, the app gave users an option to pay for a Match.com subscription using an external link, which is a big no-no. Apple collects 30% of subscription payments if people play by the rules. Match.com's app has been available since 2009.
But how will people find each other now?
The Warcraft auction house.
IRL.
does
Ooh,
the
the
same
AH is good.
thing. It does the same thing.
Yeah.
It links out, doesn't use the in-app subscription.
LFG Hogger.
Watch out for that. Let's move on to the randomizer.
Randomizer.
See, folks, you would never even know Jason Scott. He's on it like that. Look at that. Physicists at the Large Hadron Collider could be getting an early Christmas present, the Higgs boson. Public talks are scheduled to discuss the latest results from ATLAS and CMS, two of the main LHC experiments, on December 13th. And according to theoretical physicist Lubos Mottl, chances are high, but not strictly 100%, that the talks will either announce, de facto or de jure, discovery or some far-reaching exclusion that will be really qualitative and unexpected. That's scientist talks for, I think they found the Higgs boson.
You're really reading between the lines here. If you actually go to the
it's-
bottom of the article, it says that the Higgs boson was not available for comment.
Yeah. If the rumors are true, the Higgs would have been seen at 125 gigaelectron volts and could bolster the idea that there is physics beyond the standard model that describes the behavior of subatomic particles. So this would be a huge advance in physics, and I'm a physics fanboy, so I know I'm a little more excited than most.
Subatomically
About
huge.
this.
You're not alone.
That's why I love the song Subatomic Girl by the Wannabes so much, because it's the best subatomic physics song ever written.
Out of all the subatomic physics songs I've ever
Is
heard
it
of,
on
it sounds like the most
Spotify?
delightful.
I don't know.
What about Rhapsody?
I have it on my computer. It's also available on the internet. I don't know.
So the old
I know the
Napster.
Wannabes. They don't care. Let's check the calendar.
Tom's got an F serve.
Nintendo will release Mario Kart 7 for the 3DS this Sunday, December 4th. Also on Sunday, you can get the white Galaxy S2 Skyrocket, if you're an AT&T customer, that is. And next Tuesday, Microsoft has confirmed their revamped Xbox 360 dashboard will launch. That's Tuesday the 6th.
Now we check what is incoming. Look up in the sky,
Incoming
and you'll see it, because there it is. It's incoming.
Meow, meow.
Incoming message. It all sounds like the calendar, but it's really incoming. Throttled speeds don't reduce piracy. I screwed him up because I complimented him. That's what happens. I should never do that.
Never do that.
Throttled speeds don't reduce piracy. They just make me more patient, says Fez in Montreal. Bell in Canada throttles BitTorrent heavily, usually to 20 kilobits per second over my 5 megabit connection. We talked about Alaska, University of Alaska, throttling their entire dormitory system to try to fight piracy. Fez says, okay, so I've been throttled 20 kilobits per second over my 5 megabit connection. This has been the case for a few years now, and since it started, I have had my BitTorrent client running nonstop. In fact, since uploads are not throttled, I've probably uploaded 100 times more than I otherwise would, not to mention all the power I've wasted with the PC left running nonstop. Go cheap Hydro. And this goes along with the Ars Technica story that we mentioned the study on Wednesday, but that says essentially when you throttle the top 1% of bandwidth users overall in a month, you end up not punishing any of the people that are actually using the bandwidth at high bandwidth times. Because you know what? Bandwidth and data are not the same thing. Yep. All right.
Although
we've
I
done
will
that.
say that the most eco way, because obviously leaving your computer running 24/7, downloading stuff isn't a very eco thing to do, but the most eco file sharing is SneakerNet. Get out and walk across the street with a hard drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Essentially, throttling, not easing any of your congestion problems, ISPs. You're just playing anti-competitive games with us. Please stop it.
Next email from McKinley H. Tabor. Dear TNT Show, I just realized something. SOPA, Protect IP, the National Defense Authorization Act, and now this IT overtime bill are all part of the same joke.
Really?
Congress is trolling. They really don't mean to trash 200 plus years of American democracy, civil rights, and judicial oversight. They're just proposing stupid things to laugh at how we respond.
I wish this were true so badly,
Yeah, I know.
McKinley. You don't even know.
Wouldn't that be nice?
If that was the case. All right, folks, don't forget to submit your stories at technewstoday.reddit.com and submit your favorite moments of Tech News Today at twit.tv/bestof. Hack 5, you're going to be featuring something new?
Oh, yeah, we might be featuring something new soon. Actually, those will be back around right before
Was
Christmas.
holding it upside down?
They're gone.
I was like,
Yeah.
what?
That's the last one time.
That's the
I'm
last.
sorry.
That's the last one. The very last.
No,
one?
no, no. There's another shipment, but it's not going to be until like 2 days before Christmas.
All right.
Anyway, yeah. But check out hack5.org for all sorts of cool forensic stuff this week.
Also, don't forget to tune in to Tech News Today. You can find us at twit.tv/TNT. You can email us, TNT@twit.tv. And you can give us a call. Our phone number is 260-TNT-SHOW. We usually let it go to voicemail. We apologize. Don't mean to be rude. It's just like we're so busy. I hope you understand. But do leave us a voicemail, and if it's really good and short, we'll probably play it on the show. Don Reisinger will be with us on Monday. Sarah will be in France, but we will see you then.
Wee! Wee wee!
Oui, oui.
Ouais. À bientôt.